What's going on, guys? ShadowNinja here, and today we're going to be talking about top 5 seasonal weapons you're going to be wanting to get before the final shape launches. Now, one thing to mention before we continue, this is a PvE focused video, so we're not mentioning anything on PvP. For one, I just don't care about PvP. Two, I don't know enough to be like, get these because the meta is going to go this way, and these are great weapons to have in that case. I have no idea, nor do I care. So with that out the way, let's jump into some reasons why we are focusing on seasonal weapons and why it's important to take advantage of the situation now to get them if you have yet to get these weapons. So for one, seasonal weapons are losing the main way to obtain them when the final shape launches. Well, you may be wondering why. Well, because the main way to get them via seasonal activities like deep dives and the coil are getting bolted, meaning you will be at the whims of world drop RNG or Banshee. This is not fun. This definitely limits the accessibility and the rate you can get a craftable weapon. But at the same time, you should take advantage of the situation now because Bungie is doing the daily red borders. Basically, instead of going to a vendor and focusing them, you can just complete a seasonal activity. You basically got 4 attempts a day at this because there's 4 different seasons, 4 different seasonal activities. It pretty much prioritizes what you don't have. So if you guys are missing red borders, they'll give you red borders for what you don't have. But again, some RNG is tied to it, but it's also daily. So take advantage now. Don't really wait until later. So before we jump into the top 5, let's talk about some honorable mentions worth mentioning. So first up on a list from Season of the Wish, the Appendance Stasis Trace Rifle. This is a Stasis Trace Rifle. It's a legendary one, and it doesn't take up an exotic slot. That's enough to just have in the back burner and use whenever you want. Also, this is an incredible trace rifle. Let's not get it twisted. It should be in the top 5, but again, there was only 5 slots for me to mention. So here we are. Next up, Adhortive Solar Pulse Rifle. This is also from Season of the Wish. This is specifically a Season of an Undying weapon, and pulses are getting a juicy buff. So it is worth, talking about, worth having in the back burner. It has nano munitions, an incredible origin trait. More on that with Subjunctive, another honorable mention we'll talk about. Also, it has heal clip and incandescent. That is a combination that is worth using right now with how everything is working, and I expect it in the final shape to continue its strong stance. The Subjunctive, also Season of the Wish, and an Undying weapon. This is an SMG that has Volt Shot, so it is already worth it right there. The origin trait nano munitions is incredible, like I mentioned before. Specifically, annotation here on screen, we go more into detail about it, but in this case, you can get up to 7 stacks with this origin trait around, being near your teammates. And for this SMG, for example, each stack gives you an extra 10 shots, and 70 extra shots with a stack of 7 is possible and incredible. So very much worth it on the origin trait alone. But I will admit, if you guys have an Icolos or maybe even an out of bounds, then maybe this isn't really worth the pickup, but I still urge with the origin trait, it's worth it. Next up, we have a Season of the Deep weapon on an honorable mention. Different times. This is a Strand Pulse Rifle. Like I mentioned before, it is going to be a pulse rifle. They're getting a buff, so it is worth the checkout. Also, this is going to be a strand option. There isn't much strand pulse rifle options out there, especially on the craftable side, and this being very easily, accessible right now. This is going to give you some solid options when it comes to synergy with strand if pulse rifles really turn out to be the powerhouse that it may be, or at least worth powerhouse, or maybe worth try. I don't even know how to word that, but worth using in the final shape. Right now in PvE, not really worth using, in my opinion, but in the final shape, it may be worth something. Different times, a strand pulse rifle may be worth it there. And then last up on the list, Prodigal Return is an arc grenade launcher from Season of Defiance. Now, this isn't a wayframe or a forbearance, for example, but it is a solid grenade launcher. It can run Volt Shot or Adaptive Munitions in one column, Envious Lead from Gold, or Field Prep in the other column. And as you guys can tell, those combinations alone, whether you mix match any way, solid. And if you guys want a solid arc grenade launcher and you guys haven't, got this yet, definitely recommend doing it. But again, these are honorable mentions. Nothing too dire here, in my opinion. But if you guys are looking for some other stuff outside the top 5, there's a solid list for you guys. But let's jump into the top 5. Now, number 5 on the list, this really isn't a ranking, but I guess we'll just make it a ranking because we said top 5. First up, Perpetualist. This is a 600 RP strand auto. The PvE god roll you'll basically want, if I was to give one, extended barrel, tactile mag. You can either run Envious or Zen, golden tricorn, or target lock. When it comes to the 4th column, yeah, if you guys don't have a Rufus Fury, which is the Root of Nightmares Strand auto rifle, it's a 720 RPM. I have it. It's incredible. The Perpetualis is a great fit to fill that void when it comes to Strand legendary options. Quicksilver Storm is an option. They did nerf that in a way, so that does suck in that regard, but Perpetualis is a solid one, to say the least. And again, it's going to fill that void of a Strand auto rifle for you guys. Auto rifles are pretty good in PvE. I expect them to continue that in the final shape. So definitely, if you guys don't have one, you guys don't have a Rufus Fury, pick this up. Very good and worth the usage. Now, in number 4, we have Until Its Return. This is a Season of the Deep weapon, and this is a rapid fire frame Strand shotgun. Now, if I was to give a god roll, this one gets very diverse in the options you can have. Now, when it comes to the first two, small bore and tactile mag, very simple there. Now in column 3, we have overflow, auto loading, or threat detector. And then in column 4, we have a wider range of options: cascade point, surrounded, warple, collective action, or trench barrel. All those perks are incredible. Depending on my character, I would either use trench or cascade point. But yeah, surrounded's great, warple's great, collective action's great. Shotguns, to be honest, can get forgotten in the sandbox, especially for majority of players. They are really good to use if you get the hang of it, and Until Its Return can be a great entry shotgun for you guys to kind of dabble your toes into the shotgun and then allow you to get some better options, whether it's a raid shotgun or a future shotgun in the final shape. Really encourage you guys to get Until Its Return. Also, Strand fits in that kinetic slot. That diversity is great to have all together. Now at number 3, we have a Season of the Witch weapon, the Semitician. This is a Strand high impact rocket launcher. The PvE god roll you will want is smart drift control, impact casing, field prep, impulse amplifier, and bipod. This does have explosive light. For this case, and the reasoning why we're going with bipod and why we want this craftable is for bipod alone. When it comes to the reasonings, bipod is a great perk and something that I do think every Guardian needs to have in the back burner. Now, is this the best rocket launcher with bipod? No. Crux Termination is a phenomenal peak bipod rocket launcher, but again, not everyone has RNG on their side, so Semitician is a great option to fill that void. Bipod is a great perk, and depending on how the future season artifacts go, will determine how powerful bipod is. I do think it's a great perk that has seen some great improvements from when it was first introduced, and having one in your arsenal again is really important, especially if you're looking to getting some higher difficulty, nightfalls and stuff like that. It's a great way to deal with champions, and I do think that there is some solid DPS options around rocket launchers that don't need bait and switch. Explosive light is good and all. I just still lean towards my bait and switch Apex Predator, so that's why I didn't mention explosive light and the god roll. Now, number 2, the Earmite. This is also from Season of the Witch. This is a solar fusion rifle, and the archetype specifically is a high impact frame. Now, this will be on the slower charge times of a fusion rifle, but you'll see with the god roll, you're going to be wanting arrowhead break, enhanced battery, envious assassin, and controlled burst. Controlled burst is the main reason to get this fusion rifle. There is a Strand one we'll be mentioning, but that is in a different slot in your loadout, so having one in the energy slot as a solar weapon is a great option. Now, I'm not going to say controlled burst is the best boss DPS option in the game. When it comes to maximizing your damage, I do think it is very viable at allowing players to maximize DPS phases for themselves. Trust me, I use this in my DPS phases, and sometimes I'll just drop 8.5 million damage on the meatball from Warlord's Ruin. So that's fun. Yeah. But again, I was using a controlled burst fusion, specifically not the Earmite. But again, it's great for DPS. It's also great for champions, and it also makes this fusion rifle one of the best in the game and a must-have to have. So yeah, controlled burst on a fusion, incredible. I think I mentioned it already, or at least I hinted at it. The final weapon, number 1 on this top 5, is Scattered Single. This should be on the top of your list of weapons to get. Now, when it comes to the god roll for this Strand rapid fire frame fusion rifle, you're going to be wanting arrowhead break, enhanced battery, overflow, and controlled burst. The main reason for this weapon, like I mentioned with the Earmite, is controlled burst. This is a solid DPS option, and it can definitely fill out your loadout and give it some balance, especially if you have a great rocket launcher like the Apex Predator. It works incredibly well, as well as dealing with champions. Control burst is a phenomenal perk that makes this a must-have weapon. And also, like I mentioned in the Eremite, this is in the strand section, so it's going to be in the kinetic section, allowing for some flexibility with your loadout and really optimizing to give you the best capabilities to dish out damage. And again, this is a must have. But overall, this is pretty much my top 5 for weapons to get. Now, when it comes to the honorable mentions, or at least maybe the top 5 list, if you guys have any recommendations of weapons you think are worthwhile, drop them in the comment section down below. Give your reasons for that. I do think that a lot of these weapons, or just all the loot in Destiny 2, except for like those clear obvious ones like a Ruthless Fury Strand Auto from Root of Nightmares, are very just like, hey, how does the player like how it feels, and things like that. Obviously, certain archetypes aren't going to be the greatest, but in most activities in Destiny, you can have fun with different sorts of weapons. So if you guys have any recommendations, I encourage you guys to drop it in the comment section down below of weapons that are seasonal weapons, to be specific, worthwhile for the player. But besides that, if you guys enjoyed this video and found this video informative in any way, be sure to drop this video a like, helps out the video a ton. And for more content like this, guys, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell to be notified when I drop more content, especially if you guys enjoyed this video. We have more of that in the future when Final Shape rolls around and things like that, of a lot of guides and things like that to kind of, you know, help you on your path of being the best Guardian possible. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I gotta say in this one. Hope you guys have a good one. ShadowNinja here, and I'm out.